hard, so please give them your undivided attention and be patient, you know. I know each one of them still have their 10-minute strand once they do their intro and their conclusion, okay? Okay, thanks so much.
Okay. We're the physical group, and I'm Lauren Jarima.
I'm Kelly Wolfskamp.
I'm Shanice Stevens.
Brooke Lewis.
Brady Zarkas.
And we'll be discussing how do adolescents deal with drugs, alcohol, pregnancy, fighting, and body image. And to start off, I'm going to talk about addressing alcohol with adolescents. And as we've discussed before, adolescents are obviously going through many physical, emotional, and social changes. And on top of all that, they're starting to be introduced to alcohol. So it's very important to talk about it with them and to get them realizing the physical side effects that go along with it. And in particular, I found a study by Johnston, O'Malley, and Bachman titled Monitoring the Future and National Results on Adolescents' Drug Use, Overview of Key Findings 2006, that found that 41% of adolescents consumed alcohol by the 8th grade. And on top of that, 6.2% of 8th graders had gotten drunk within the 30 days prior to the survey. And while 6.2% may not seem like a large number, that's just the 30 days previous to the survey. And 41% is still a pretty large number for adolescents. And the study also showed that many of the adolescents didn't realize the consequences, and especially the physical consequences that went along with drinking. And in particular, a lot of adolescents claim that they thought that you have to use alcohol constantly and become addicted to it for it to actually affect your body. But the truth is, alcohol affects you every single time you use it. And that's where I started my research at. Immediately upon consuming alcohol, it goes into your bloodstream. And from there, 20% of it goes directly to your bloodstream from your stomach. And the rest goes into the caloric valve of your stomach, which is right here. And when you have too much alcohol in your system, that causes that valve to shut down so it can't go into the small intestines. And it's trapped in your stomach then, which your stomach then creates hydrochloric acid, which is mixed with the alcohol, and that causes feelings of nausea and vomiting in many individuals. And I focused on the major organs that are affected from alcohol abuse, and we're going to start with the liver, so alcohol liver disease, what's also known as ALD. And the liver is very sensitive to alcohol abuse because it's the only organ that has enzymes metabolizing alcohol into acidic acid. And while it's creating this acidic acid to fight the alcohol abuse, fat cells start to develop in the liver that shouldn't be there. And the liver also ceases to produce glucose. So then all of a sudden your body has an inadequate supply of blood sugar, which becomes known as the first disease I have here, hyperglycemia. And even though it's stated that it has reversible effects, it's a very serious disease because it can develop in individuals only after 6 hours of heavy drinking and if you haven't eaten properly that day. So it's very important for adolescents because if they aren't eating properly, they're going to develop malnutrition and their bones on top of that won't be forming properly. And the next disease I had was alcohol hepatitis. And this is more severe than hyperglycemia because it's an inflammation of the liver that develops in 35% of heavy drinkers. And common symptoms that go along with it are a loss of appetite, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, and fever. And even in its mildest forms, it's very severe because the effects are still going to last throughout the rest of your life. And only with abstinence will the effects slightly decrease, but they'll still always be there. And the last one, alcohol cirrhosis, is the most severe because it has irreversible effects. And this occurs when the replacement of normal liver tissue starts to be replaced by scar tissue, and that's the image I have up here. Because on this side you can see this is a normal liver, and then you can see all these little squiggly lines are the scar tissue that becomes replaced with the normal liver tissue when there's alcohol abuse. And this actually develops in 10 to 20% of heavy drinkers. And the worst part about all this is many heavy drinkers progress from hyperglycemia to alcohol cirrhosis throughout their lives, so you have to deal with all the side effects then. And the next organ I focused on was the heart. And in particular, I focused on coronary heart disease, what's also known as CHD. And this develops when fatty material, calcium, and scar tissue build up in arteries that supply the heart with blood when alcohol is consumed. And I'm not sure, but some of you might have heard in the news recently how CHD is actually reduced with minor alcohol consumption. But this is a problem because in my research, as I'll discuss soon, a lot of adolescents are partaking in binge drinking, and that increases CHD. So it is a major problem for them, and they don't realize it a lot of the times. And the other problem I found associated with the heart is that stroke risk is also increased with high blood sugar, with high blood pressure, which occurs from constant and heavy drinking. And finally, the other organ I focused on was the brain. And in my opinion, this is the most severe because it's the organ that suffers immediate effects upon alcohol consumption, and that's very important for adolescents. Because alcohol depresses the functioning of the pituitary gland, which is right here. And when alcohol is present, this gland releases too little of the hormone that regulates urine production, and therefore the kidneys start to produce too much diluted urine, and you become dehydrated and often suffer a hangover, which is horrible for adolescents who might have to go to school the next day and then can't perform properly on testing and start to fall behind. And on top of that, alcohol reduces the function of neurotransmitters and receptors, or how the brain conveys messages between nerves. So that way, the body can't process information from your skin, muscles, and senses. And that's really important because adolescents are already struggling to determine between right and wrong during this time period. And when all of that happens, their memory and reasoning capabilities become hazy, which makes proper judgments even harder. And then through all my research, I found that it was really important to look at how and what adolescents were consuming, because that's going to make the physical side effects on their body relevant. And in a study by Julie Dorr, Wirch, and Moore titled High Potency and Other Alcoholic Beverage Consumption Among Adolescents, they surveyed 454 eighth graders from inner city, suburban, and rural middle schools in Northeast Florida. And upon those surveyed, they claimed that the number one beverages they preferred to drink were wine and wine coolers, and it was closely followed by beer and liquor. And they also claimed that they mostly consumed high-proof liquor, which was 75% alcohol by volume. So therefore, they are participating in binge drinking mostly. And one of the quotes I found was that 14 and 15-year-olds consume relatively strong, inexpensive, and pleasant-tasting drinks. And this is a problem because they often misinterpret the alcohol content until they're already drinking and falling into the physical effects that are going to occur to them. And this relates to the diseases that I discussed before, like alcohol, hepatitis, and CHD then. And on top of all this, since they are misinterpreting the content and the consequences, it's really important for educators to inform them and take that first step of being informative and talking about it within the classroom. And I came up with a few solutions that could just be simply placed into your own classroom despite whatever content level you're teaching. And the first one I had was Mythbusters, and simply pairing up your classroom into two different teams and going over simple questions that we might think might not matter to them, but the side effects of a hangover, how much alcohol is actually included in a specific beverage, could be really beneficial to them. And then on top of that, team teaching with another health teacher or bringing in a health specialist to go over a lesson similar to this about the actual physical effects of the diseases I've discussed, or answer more in-depth questions that the students might have. And mainly, I talked about preventative techniques because another survey I found from the National Youth Risk Behavior Survey from 2007 said that only 23.8% of adolescents drank before the age of 13. And so that's not that great of a number, it's still significant, but it's very important to use preventative techniques and simply maybe teaching them how to say no so they don't feel peer pressured, can tackle issues before they actually get into the situation. However, from that 23.8%, 10% of those individuals, which is this graph right here, still are heavy drinkers and binge drinking, and that is a significant number. And dealing with that, you have to target those students more so and look for the warning signs. And in my research, it said for looking for students who are heavily drinking, you might want to notice if they're deliberately physically harming themselves, if they're chronically absent from school, or if all of a sudden they're starting to perform very lowly within your classroom. And after you notice something like that, my research suggested going and seeking a professional right away and not trying to deal with it on your own because you may not be fully informed on the situation. And I also listed that creating a trusting learning environment is key in dealing with all this. So your students feel welcome to coming and talking to you about any issues, and they might notice issues in the classroom or outside of the school that you wouldn't have noticed before. And that's a huge possibility of tackling issues. And another suggestion I found in my research was simply having them empower themselves. And one of those things I found was maybe having them create their own PSAs or public service announcements. And I know that's done a lot in high school where students create mini commercials, especially around prom time, about drinking and driving. Well, you can have them bring that to their own level and come up with creative ideas on how to tackle that. And simply by bringing this all into your classroom and becoming informative, students are going to have the possibility to make good decisions and be fully aware of the physical side effects of alcohol.
Okay. My portion was talking about adolescent body issue. And if you look, just at a couple of pictures up here, these are girls that are concerned with their weight, they're checking themselves out in the mirror. And both of these guys are lifting weights and trying to become more bulky. So, this is my topic. And first, I thought what was most important was to discuss what I found in my research to be like the definition of what body image is. And I took this from a girl named Abby Winsler, who was a graduate student at UNH in 2005, and she described body image as not so much our actual appearance or how we seem to others, but our internal view of how we look, how we think we appear to others, and how we feel about our looks. Why is this a problem to, like in our adolescents' lives? It's a problem because the numbers of poor body image continue to rise in adolescence. And most people think that poor body image is only related to females, but a lot of boys are dealing with body image issues as well. So I think that's something that's really important for us to keep in mind in our classroom, to not only look at girls and try and influence positive opinions of girls, but also in boys. And then it's also a problem because poor body image can give rise to things like eating disorders, drug and alcohol abuse, and severe depression. Some of the things that I found said on a teen health website that I thought you would probably hear within your classroom, or you hear between your friends or siblings or whatever, are comments such as, I'm fat, I'm too skinny, I'd be happy if I were taller, shorter, had curly hair, straight hair, a smaller nose, bigger muscles, or longer legs. So, as you can see, like from some of the comments, it's not just that you might think you're too fat. Some people might think that they're too skinny, and I found in my research that that's more or less how guys view themselves. As you know, they're too lean, or they don't have enough muscle mass. As you can see from the first picture on my first slide, the guy was really, really muscular, and that's what society values. If you guys don't mind, I wanted to take a poll, but I thought, it's kind of a personal issue, so I figured you guys could put your heads down, don't look, or close your eyes or something. I was going to ask you a series of questions, because I want to get some percentages. Okay, so my first question is, and you can just raise your hand if you feel like this is applied to you. How many of you believe you have some sort of imperfection or would like to change something about yourself? For example, become thinner, more muscular, something like that. Okay, give me a second. I promise I won't judge her. Okay. Okay, my next question is, how many of you have dieted or been conscious of what you're eating or drinking or contemplated dieting? Okay. The third question is, how many of you look at a magazine or watch a movie or commercial and feel differently about yourself or compare yourself to something? And the last question, how many of you feel like there's a societal pressure to be thin, fit, or more attractive? Okay, I'm going to calculate these real quick. This is a girl. Okay. Thank you for being honest, and you guys couldn't see, but I would have raised my hand for a lot of those too. So, what are some of the things that influence our adolescence? Many of the things that influence our adolescence are socio-cultural factors, is how they talked about them. The different types that I researched were peer and family relationships and pressures, which I found that there are two different types of peer relationships and different ways that adolescents deal with peers. There's what they call peer appearance conversations, which would just be, you talking to your girlfriend or guy friend being like, oh, I love what this girl's wearing, I wish I could get that, or, oh, this girl looks really thin, I should find out what she does to stay in shape, things like that, or guys just talking about different, workout routines that they do, or talk about what you eat. And then there's also peer appearance criticisms, which are more so the negative, or what you would associate to be negative, because they say, oh, that girl's fat, or that guy's too skinny, they're ugly, they're not attractive, things like that. But overall, I found in my research that both of them have a negative effect on adolescents. And you might not really think that peer appearance conversations affect adolescents, but girls that were found to talk more about appearance with their girlfriends or whoever were more likely to have a lower self-esteem or a lower perception of their body image. And then obviously criticisms leave a very negative impact on adolescents. One of the quotes that I cited in my paper was from Jones, Big Daughter and Lee from 2004, and they suggest that societal factors have a powerful impact on the development and maintenance of body image through the creation of an appearance culture, because our culture highly values, how people look, what people have, materialistic type things. So it's an appearance culture that values, reinforces, and models cultural ideas of beauty and body shape. This appearance-based culture is what adolescents are growing up with and know and believe in. It's their beliefs and naive views that are modeled by their poor body image and self-esteem. So I just wanted to show you guys a couple of pictures that I found from some magazines that I had at my house here at school that me and my roommates will look through. Because the next thing I wanted to talk about was the media factors that students deal with, and those tend to include television, movies, and magazines. Typically, I would hope that like grade school kids aren't looking at Cosmo. It's geared more towards high school and young age women. But these are some of the things that, if a young girl has an older sister at home, she might go and grab the magazine and flip through it. And just even from looking at the cover, they talk about curbing your cravings without feeding your face. So it suggests that you really shouldn't be eating. And then they have a whole article about it. So they tell you that you can curb your cravings without eating a thing, which I think sends a negative message to students. But also there are just a lot of pictures that are very revealing and have a really big influence on body image and how you should look or what should be like the ideal look of guys. This is an article, it's called The Stud Meter, and they rank guys based on how they look and things that they wear. And then these are just a couple other pictures. Girls are dressed very revealingly in magazines, and when girls are seeing these kind of things, they compare themselves to these models who tend to be, digitally enhanced or something like that. So, what?
Photoshop.
Yeah. This is a really high standard for young girls to live up to. I don't really know many people that can achieve that themselves. So I had some about guys. Where are they? But, because it's not just the guy or the girls that are being shown in magazines and things to live up for, or to, it's guys. And you can see like he's being shown as like a sex symbol and stuff, and it's not really a secret, like middle school kids are thinking about that and dealing with that as well. So those are just some things I wanted to show you. Did that did anybody take a look and kind of like analyze what the models look like, or say, oh, I'm not as thin as her or anything like that? I know I do. And I look through magazines, I'm like, oh, I can't wear those jeans or something like that. So those are just some examples. And I found in a study conducted by Morrison in 2004 that it was an open-ended survey, and they just asked adolescents to list as many magazines as they could find. So 281 magazine titles were listed, and 48 out of these 281 magazines contained idealistic representations of male or female bodies. And then they also listed 279 different television programs, and out of those 279, 41 contained idealistic male or female body imagery. So I thought that was a really high percentage. Just out of something that you watch on TV, there's a really good chance that they're portraying what society believes to be the ideal body image. And I had a video that I thought was just really kind of shocking.
When does a child become an adult? At 10?
Okay, before I started, this ties into how there's parental pressure. And as I was looking through videos, I was just really astonished at how old this girl is, who we're going to focus on, at how young she was and what kind of things her mom was saying to her. Even though she might not, the mom doesn't think it's really all that bad.
It's my choice, it's my life, I can do what I want with my life.
At 14?
I am going to get drunk and exercise, pull some lads.
At 16?
When I was 11, my mum had her boobs on, and I always thought, this is what I want to look like.
Most adults want to look their best, but we don't expect to achieve perfection. Our kids, though, are becoming obsessed with the way they look.
At first I started just eating less. I tried not eating at all, but I didn't like that. I got too hungry. First started getting into sunbeds when I was about 11, and then I started going on the sunbed about 4 or 5 times a week now. Where's it going to stop? I've got kids that are 5 or 6 that are worrying about what they're eating.
But is their fixation with body image all too much, too young? Tonight, we meet the teenagers whose obsession with the way they look has taken over their lives.
Sasha, you're on this. Do you want me to put you on?
This is the important part.
Sasha Bennington loves being the centre of attention.
Where's my knickers? I gotta be on TV.
And at 10 years old, she's become completely preoccupied with her appearance.
She does like the fact that, people tell her she's pretty. Anyone would. You don't want to be told you're ugly.
And being concerned about how she looks is something her mum actively encourages.
Right, ready? We're back, ready?
She's saying
Suck
fat
it.
belly,
Suck it
fat
in.
belly. Telling you to suck it in.
You are so mean.
If she eats sweets, then I'll just say, Sasha, you're not eating that, Do you want to be like an Oompa Loompa or something? And it is in jest. It's not like, I'm calling her a fat cow or anything like that, because, I don't.
It's important to be pretty, because if you like out here and fat and ugly, then you like a chubby face, big face, large face, chubby. And now you're like, ew, gooey, don't be friends with you, you're ugly.
For Sasha, pretty.
Okay, I don't know if you guys kind of agree that even though her mom didn't call her a fat cow, starting at such a young age, she's only 10 years old. I don't know, that can really influence a teenager. One of the things I found from my research from Mundell was that in a study of 5th graders, 10-year-old girls and boys told researchers that they were dissatisfied with their own bodies after watching a music video by Britney Spears or a clip from the TV show Friends. So that's just another kind of clip as to how media influences adolescents. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, and this is where our class research came into play, I wanted to compare how we thought to adolescents. Just because as you get older, you become more alert as to how your body's developing, things that you can do to just live a healthy life rather than just trying to fit in. So the number of pre-adolescent girls who desire a thinner body size is between 28 to 55%. And I found that in an article by Clark and Tigeman in 2007. And I applied that percentage to the first question I asked you, which was how many of you believe you have some sort of imperfection. The girls found that there was 84% of us thought that we had something we would like to change, and 66% of the boys thought that they had something they'd like to change. As an overall class value, 79% of us thought there was something that we could change. So really, it's not that different from the higher spectrum of the percentage for adolescents, which I think is something to really look out for. And then the second percentage up here, which says adolescent girls reported that 69% of the magazine pictures influenced their idea of perfect body shape. And I applied that to the question where I asked you if you looked at a magazine if it influences you, and 46% of girls thought that magazines influenced how they thought about their perfect body shape. So it's actually really alarming and something that I really think we need to look out for, because as you can see, like the percentage of adolescent girls is higher, but as we grow and mature and fall into and learn that image isn't everything, that's why we show a smaller percentage. So we really, really need to be mindful of how girls are thinking, and we need to start introducing to them, as well as boys, that image isn't everything. We need to teach them about, being a good person and doing things outside of just what they look like. And then for the fourth question I asked you, if there was a societal pressure, I applied that to the 47% of girls that claimed that the pictures influenced them to want to diet and lose weight. And we thought that there was an overall class average of 84%. We wanted to do that, but I guess it's like talking about society and the pictures. Girls are looking at what society thinks, as well as guys are looking at what society wants you to look like and stuff like that. And then the last one I compared to, have you dieted or been conscious of what you eat? And I thought that was crazy because in one of the research articles that I found, in most articles, commercials, TV shows, movies, actresses and actors are normally within 20% of being, like they're 20% underweight of what the normal BMI or normal weight would be for like your height and things like that. So my question I kind of like asked you guys is, with the body weight of media figures averaging about 20% underweight, why are we so surprised that our percentages of adolescents with poor body image are so high? And so I also tried to put together what I thought adolescents were trying to achieve through like all the information they're gaining. And they described the ideal body image for men to be like V-shaped, and there's a big emphasis placed on large biceps, the chest, and the shoulders. And actually, this is a small piece of information I found. Some of the biggest influences on guys, rather than media, movies, things like that, lie within pressures between friends, parents, and peers. There's a quote that I had in my paper that was talking about a boy named Tom, and he quoted, "If you've got friends who are quite big in build, you want to be the same as them, although you might not be able to do anything about it. It's on your conscience all the time. You want to be that sort of size." So guys compare themselves to their friends and things like that. And then the ideal female body image is to be extremely thin, and the emphasis is placed on slim hips, bottom, and thighs. And then there's the different ways that men and women place judgment on themselves. Typically, women see themselves as overweight, and men or boys consider themselves to be underweight or not muscular enough. Okay. And so then my question is, what can we do to help our students? There are many things that we can do within the classroom. Does anybody have ideas? I kind of wanted to like brainstorm a little bit, see what anybody could come up with as to how we can help improve body image for our students.
I know people use PowerPoints a lot, and they put pictures in there, and a lot of times the pictures are of people that are really skinny, and image that you want to see, so using other pictures can help.
Okay, so maybe focusing on like average size pictures. Okay, anything else?
Something that, as in the classroom, we as teachers could compliment them, like if something that they're wearing, like, I really that shirt really looks good on you, or I like the way your hair is, or something like that.
Okay, I think that's good. Complimenting in general, I think is really good. I do like that, you know, that everybody wants to hear that they look good, you know, especially because that's the way society wants you to think. But I also think we need to extend further from that. We need to compliment them on, you know, their efforts on a project, or, you know, maybe they did 5 or 10% better on a test or on a homework assignment, or, you know, they created something that was really pretty, or they tried something new. We really need to focus on that too, to help them see where their strengths live outside of just what they look like. And then another thing that I found out through my research is that majority of girls and boys find out health information and get false information just from what they read in magazines and see on TV and things like that. So one of the important things I thought we needed to do to help our students was to help bring the information back into the school by introducing health education classes. And just based on their constructionism theory and the philosophy, our schools can be a place for positive change. So we can work with our students, work with counselors, work with parents, and we can develop programs to help improve our students' self-esteem. So I thought that was good. But other than that, basically, body image and poor body image is a ever-rising problem in our adolescents, and we need to work together as a school community to help them out.
Alrighty. Mine was on substance abuse in general, alcohol, drugs, tobacco. And my paper actually geared their research on geographical locations such as rural, urban. Puerto Rico was a certain site, and also gender, race, and stuff like that. Substance abuse is a national concern. Adolescent substance use has become a serious concern nationwide. Although there are many ways of viewing adolescent substance use, family's influence has been established as one of the strongest sources of risk and protection. And I believe that adolescents don't really understand the true meaning of a consequence. They feel that they are invincible and nothing can hurt them, nothing will hurt them. And so I put the definition of a consequence as a result or effect of an action or condition, which is often negative. And this can be classified as an overindulgence in or dependence on an addictive substance, such as alcohol, drugs, or tobacco. That's the definition of substance abuse. Some facts about rural adolescents. And I decided to do rural area just because that's where I live. I live in a small community where we're surrounded by cornfields. You can go miles and not see a neighbor. So in this, where I'm from, we are actually the second largest area where adolescents drink alcohol, versus the highest is Chicago, and then our county specifically is second in the entire state of Illinois. And a few facts that this research, it was done in Wisconsin, North and South Dakota, and Montana, and it said drinking during pre-adolescent years is strongly associated with later alcohol misuse. The average age of first alcohol among rural adolescents is 9.5 years. That's even before middle school. But in adolescence, I remember coming up to Illinois when I was in summers, and I'd be 13, 14 years old, people asked if I wanted a beer. And my mom was just astounded. She grew up there, and she was, you absolutely do not drink until you're 21. She was very stern about that. The average age for the first time of being drunk is just over 11 years. And parents were the source of receiving alcohol, even if it wasn't with their consent, meaning there'd be beer in the basement, parents go out with their friends, kid has friends over, they drink the beer. I've had friends who steal vodka from their parents and fill it with water. And obviously there's a big imbalance when the parents go to use it, but happens. This one was towards Puerto Rico, and 30.4% of 12-year-olds and 81.7% of 17-year-olds abuse substances, which are tobacco, drugs, and alcohol. Youth who reported abusing alcohol were more sexually active. It has been proven that substance abusers are also linked to violent behavior. And when students were asked about their marijuana use, responses ranged to people who never tried it to having tried it 40 or more times. That is not violent. It is supposed to be violent. I just noticed that. Nationwide study, 39% of 8th graders report using alcohol within their lifetime. Children as young as 3-year-old have schemas about alcohol. I remember being 3 or 4 years old asking my mom, can I have some of that? And she would let me have a sip to make me not want to have it, because to kids, beer smells gross, tastes gross, just not something pleasant. And that actually worked for me, because I didn't even start drinking alcohol till I moved to Clinton County, where drinking is such a big thing.
I probably was.
Huh?
I probably was.
Yeah, it's a drinking place. Young children have also hold largely negative expectancies about alcohol, while positive expectancies increase with age. No main effects of gender can be predicted with alcohol usage. 16.5% of 8th graders used marijuana within the past 30 days. 16% of 8th graders. That might not sound like a lot. This is a nationwide study. There are millions of adolescents, and that's ridiculous that 16.5% of them have even tried marijuana. And the cocaine use was reported by just under 4% of 8th graders. Rural versus urban. It was found that urban area people, adolescents, usually have a higher ecstasy and marijuana usage. However, rural areas have a higher alcohol and smoking tobacco, either smokeless or cigarettes. Fatalities. 3/4 of all deaths among individuals aged 10 to 24 in the United States are related to or resulted from alcohol and other drug use. The treatment for STDs that can be transmitted because of alcohol use or drug use are between 15 to 24 years, cost the nation $6.5 billion in year 2000, and is rising. The school commitment to substance abuse. The stronger a student's effective bond to schooling and commitment to educational goals, the less likely the student is to engage in delinquency. Low school commitment is found to be associated with greater likelihood of alcohol use in the past 30 days and a greater likelihood of binge drinking during the past 2 weeks for Black, Hispanic, and white students. This is also coming from the Nation study. And outcomes for this may lead to policy initiatives to have unintended consequences for students, particularly racial and ethnic minority students. Preventions and interventions. How many of you guys had DARE program or Mendez in school? I believe DARE is more common around here. Where I was from is Mendez, which is pretty much the same thing. Their idea is to put prevention programs into middle schools and then intervention programs into high schools, which is DARE and stuff like that. But for where I'm from, we don't have DARE. We don't have any type of program that comes in to talk to students about drugs and alcohol. And this study said that they should bring in, at the beginning of the semester, have all the parents come in and talk to the parents about how to talk to the kids and stuff like that. So drinking is reduced with strict parental attitudes against youth alcohol use, coupled with involvement in structured adult-led activities. Interventions at a young age will help guide adolescents in a life without alcohol and drug use. And interventions would be designed by holding meetings with parents at the start of each school semester. Interventions would deliver information to parents during these meetings for a total of 5 meetings per year. The interventions would last for 3 years, and that's for 6th through 8th grade. The only problem that I saw with this is there wasn't a prevention for the students. The students still weren't getting the information. So I thought what would make it better is if in the classroom you talk to students, and if you don't have the ability to have DARE and Mendez come in to design something with the students. Me and Maggie, our advisory unit, is based on this, so you'll see some lessons that we kind of came up with that, so I'll kind of let that go. Adolescent substance abuse, adolescent alcohol use is a serious public health concern, one that can and does produce harmful, even life-threatening consequences in both short and long term. A great deal of time and money has been spent to understand why adolescents abuse alcohol. However, there should be more studies completed which associate adolescents with who are facing family issues such as divorce, death, and abuse with alcohol, drug, and tobacco. I did not find many studies who did combine when students are going through a family tragedy or something that's really affecting them if alcohol, drug, and tobacco use is increased. And finally, how to get involved. The personal and social damage that substance abuse inflicts on young people compels the school and family of the nation to develop new strategies for treatment and prevention.
Okay, I had pregnancy, and let's see, just a show of hands, who knows, like an adolescent that was pregnant or is now? Okay, if you look around, it's a good 90 to 100%, and that just shows you, like, just in a small classroom, like, how big of a problem it can be out there. Some predictors of pregnancies I found: social, ecological, like your family, your dyad, your peer community, and your social system. And all of these factors can cause a repeat pregnancy. In fact, it was 28 to 63%. They become pregnant not only once, but twice within 18 months after their first birth. That was a study that I found, I don't know the name of it, but, and then another one was abandonment. Adolescents often feel like abandoned by their parents and stuff, and this makes them want attention. So some adolescents might want to get pregnant just to get attention or something like that because they're not getting it at home. Another one was sexual abuse. Rapes and stuff of that nature can cause adolescent pregnancies. And here are some ways that a lot of adolescents deal with them. One is optimistic, where they focus more on their emotions. The confrontive, where the problems are the main focus. And there's also a mix where the emotions and the problems are a focus. Adolescents, they tend to choose these on their gender, their age, and their situation. And their behavior is a big part of like their health risk or if they become pregnant. And one is a substance abuse. This causes like low birth rate or death to a baby a lot of times. And like some sexual behaviors they engage in can cause diseases. And a big one is missing their classes, their prenatal classes, which, I mean, they can't receive crucial information that they need in order to be a mother, and they won't receive like a positive transition into motherhood. Ways to prevent these pregnancies. I mean, you can promote abstinence all you want, but I mean, they're still going to probably engage in the behavior. So, I mean, I after researching, I found like contraceptives are not really available that much to adolescents. I mean, it's not a good thing to do, and a lot of people might not agree with it, but a study I found showed that increasing contraceptive use declined pregnancies by 77%, which is a huge number. And I mean, increasing the availability of them might help a little bit, even though it's not a good, it's not a good thing to do. One program is also good that I had in my high school. It's called the Baby Think It Over program. It's designed to create a realistic experience of the responsibilities that take with coming for a child, and a lot of people probably had this in their high school. But a student takes the baby home for 2 nights and 3 days, and their interaction is monitored with them. The study that I read about, it showed that there was no significance and from the time that they brought it or got the baby and the time that they brought it back. But the program did show that It made them think more about birth control and discussing with their partners and what to do if they would face the issue. And this was, does anyone have any alternative schools like around them that were only for adolescent mothers? 1, 2, 3. See, I never heard of this really before researching, and I think the school was called Paquin. It's by Baltimore. This is the one I researched, but that school compared to a Baltimore public school, the students that went to the alternative school, they got a higher education, aspiration, better reproductive health outcomes. They had higher contraceptive use, more breastfeeding practice and attention, increased opportunities, attention, increased assistance, and courage. All just like going to this alternative school. Like they can focus more on their baby needs rather than like extra activities or something like that, which I thought was a really good idea. But you also have to have the money to do all this. And then some messages that we have, a lot of them have worked, and maybe a lot of them haven't related to the adolescents enough. And I think that we need to relate them more to the students or show actual real life examples. And I know there's a lot more coming out, like 16 and Pregnant on MTV. I mean, something like that, that's a good thing to like show these kids, like, this is a real 16-year-old that has this baby, and there's so many like problems and issues, and it's such a big responsibility. And then I just felt like what we could do as teachers to kind of prevent some of this. And one was promote academic success and self-worth. One was key into our school's sex education curriculum. Really make sure like all the teachers follow through with it, and there actually is one. Engage parents in their students' lives. I mean, this is a huge one. And invest time with all adolescents, like make them feel like you relate to them, or yeah, as you relate to them, they can see that you actually care and will share problems with you. And then emphasize community programs and youth development programs, like DARE or something like that, like anything to keep them like, you know, in the right state of mind.